For years, Mr. Bean's quiet, wide-eyed character walked through life with that strange little step, that confused expression, and a type of mischief that seemed almost otherworldly. And now that he is 70, the guy behind Mr. Bean has finally spoken up, giving a cheeky hint that validates what admirers have been saying for years. Rowan Sebastian Atkinson was born on a frigid January morning in 1955 in the industrial town of Conant in County Durham. Eric and Ella Atkinson had 4 boys, and he was the youngest. His father was a stable and sensible man who worked as a corporate director at a farm machinery company. His mother was warm but strict when it came to running the house. The Atkinson family had a basic, steady life, with the normal hubbub that came from having a group of brothers who were always competing, teasing, and finding ways to have fun. Rowan, on the other hand, often faded into the background. From the start, family members called him the quiet one, the observer, the boy with big eyes who watched everything but didn't say much. There was a short pause in his speech and a subtle stumble in his sentences when he did speak. It wasn't bad enough to keep him from talking to people, but it did make him more careful. People who have ever had trouble speaking in front of others know that those short breaks can feel like mountains. Rowan usually kept to himself at Durham Chester School, where he first went to school. He liked to read, draw, and mess around with little machines. He was interested in how things worked even then. He liked to take things apart and put them back together, but sometimes he would leave parts behind without knowing how. He was never the loudest kid in the room, never the funny guy, never the one who spoke up in group conversations. But he had a particular charm that you could only see if you paid attention to the small things. His visage could go from being very serious to very hilarious in a split second. A raised eyebrow, a wider eye, and an odd look on their face. It wasn't a comedy or a show yet, but the seed was there, waiting for the appropriate time and location to blossom. The silence lingered with Rowan when he went to St.T.'s school in Cumbria. He was quite smart in math and science, and he typically got good grades in those disciplines. Not everyone around him knew how good he was, but he didn't have the loud confidence. People often thought he was brilliant, yet he still had a stutter. He handled it well, but sometimes it made him pull away even more. Rowan's stutter seemed to go away as soon as he got on stage. When he performed, it was like something clicked, and he discovered a place where he didn't have to worry about how he spoke in regular life. Rowan himself said in later interviews that he was very bashful. As a teenager, he never thought he would be a performer. He never thought that millions of people around the world would know him, laugh at his work, and learn about his characters like they were in a book. He imagined he would work as an engineer. That was the plan. That was the safe and smart way for him to go. He went to Newcastle University to study electrical and electronic engineering after finishing his A-levels in science. This was a big choice. Rowan took engineering very seriously because it is a hard field. He learned a little more about himself while in university. He met new people, made new friends, and slowly realized that he had a talent that other people didn't have. The power to make people laugh without speaking a word, only a look, a well-timed expression, or a physical reaction that spoke more than a complete paragraph. Rowan's passion in acting grew as he got closer to finishing his degree. He was intrigued to the university's review groups, which were tiny groups of students who put on funny sketches, songs, and short plays. At first, he just watched. Then he tried to join in. As he got closer to the stage, his stammer bothered him less and less. It was like performing opened out a part of him that he had been hidden all his life. In real life, he was still quiet, shy, and deep in thought. But when he was in front of an audience, he spoke in a different way. A voice that didn't need words. No one told him to stop being interested in performing, but everyone thought he would become an engineer. Rowan agreed with this. He wanted to be an engineer even after he applied to the master's program at Queen's College, Oxford. He thought about designing machines, fixing complicated technical difficulties, and living a quiet, predictable life. But Oxford altered everything. He met Richard Curtis, a young writer who would later become one of his closest colleagues, and Howard Goodall, a remarkable pianist and composer, when he joined the Oxford University Dramatic Society and the Oxford Review. These friends would have a big impact on the rest of his life. Rowan started doing sketches which helped him get better at physical comedy. He learned how to make his face look like it was in impossible shapes, and over time he found a style that felt right for him. People who saw him perform back then would subsequently say the same thing. It was shocking to see someone who was so quiet suddenly burst with excitement. He was shy in real life, but not on stage. The stutter that had followed him since he was a toddler was virtually gone. It didn't go away, but it didn't have any influence over him anymore. Rowan was loose on stage. His childhood and teenage years had made an odd base. A quiet boy who didn't talk much. A stutter that made it hard for him to do things in real life but went away when he performed. An engineer at heart who secretly had the soul of a comedian. All of these things that didn't make sense came together in Oxford, making a life that would eventually astonish everyone, even Rowan. At the time, he didn't know that this quiet, introspective young man was on his way to having one of the most famous comedic careers in history. And the subtle stammer that used to hold him back will one day help him construct a character who didn't talk much but made everyone laugh. Rowan Atkinson went to Queen's College, Oxford, with the goal of studying engineering. But beyond that, calm, studious surface, something else was slowly emerging. It started off almost like a joke. He joined the Oxford University Dramatic Society and then the Oxford Review, which is known for making smart, funny comedies. He was quiet and virtually undetectable one minute, and then he became a force of pure comedy energy the next. He met two persons who would impact his life forever in these first evaluations. Richard Curtis is a smart and creative writer, and Howard Goodall is a skilled composer who knows how to set the tone and rhythm. The three young men rapidly became friends in a creative way that felt easy. Rowan delivered the slapstick, Richard brought the smart comments, and Howard brought the heartbeat of the music. They worked together to make designs that mixed smart ideas with silly ones. This offered Rowan the opportunity to try out different facial expressions and body movements at random times. These performances by students quickly brought them beyond of Oxford. In the middle of the 1970s, they went to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, which is where many of Britain's most famous entertainers got their start. The people there were different. They were noisier, more demanding, and much more honest than those at college. But every time Rowan stepped under the stage lights, something amazing happened. His presence filled the room. People who had never heard him say a full phrase before would hold their breath while he crafted a moment with just a gaze. He never had a stammer during these performances. It stayed behind the curtain, unable to do anything. Rowan was sure enough to pursue professional work by the end of the 1970s. His first big break came on radio. He worked on a funny show for BBC Radio 3 called The Atkinson People in 1978. It was a strange and smart show that used fake interviews with made-up people as its main idea. Rowan could do a lot of different voices, play with time, and improve the unique humorous rhythm that made him famous. People who had never seen his face before could feel the strange charm in the way he spoke on the television. The radio's small success led to the rise of television. Rowan joined the team of Not the 9 O'Clock News in 1979. This was a breakthrough sketch show that merged sharp political humor with fun physical comedy. It was one of the most talked about shows on British TV. People admired the young new talent with the expressive eyebrows and the timing that was always off. Producers started to see that he was completely unique. He could bend his body into inconceivable configurations, make people laugh without saying a word, and stand totally still while making them laugh harder than any punchline ever could. Rowan started to realize that comedy was more than just a hobby around this time. He spoke it fluently, even better than he did in real life. This was the point at which his career really took off. The reviews from the university had found his voice. The radio work made it sharper. The sketches on TV brought it to life. Rowan suddenly understood that what he had formerly thought of as a modest private getaway was actually the way he needed to go. The initial steps onto modest stages in Oxford were the start of all that happened after, all the renown, all the unforgettable characters, and all the recognition around the world. It didn't happen overnight that Rowan Atkinson became well known across the country. It happened slowly, with each achievement building on the last one as his confidence grew and the help of the people he met in college. People in the British entertainment industry started to notice the tall, expressive young man with the sharp features and even sharper sense of humor. After 9 O'Clock News became a hit. No one else has a style like his. That one-of-a-kind mix got the attention of authors and producers like Richard Curtis and Howard Goodall, who were already working closely with him. They knew how to read his rhythm and timing, and they knew how to keep an audience quiet with only a lifted eyebrow. The three of them worked together to make Blackadder, which would go on to become one of the most famous British comedies of all time. The first season of Blackadder came out in 1983. Rowan played Prince Edmund, who was also known as the Blackadder, in a story set in the Middle Ages. The first version of this character was noisy, over the top, and a little dumb. A lot different from the sharper and more caustic ways he would act later. The first series got a lot of different reactions, but it set the stage for something that would soon become famous. Rowan, Curtis, and writer Ben Elton came up with a new version of the idea that was funnier and had a different tone. When Blackadder came back with the second series, everything was different. Blackadder 2 came with a new name. Set in the time of Elizabeth and the Blackadder, it gave us a new version of Edmund Blackadder who was smarter, faster, and more clever. He was remarkable because of his dry humor, sneaky comments, and well-controlled facial expressions. Rowan and Tony Robinson, who played Baldric, had great chemistry that made them a duo that fans loved. Rowan showed how flexible he was by moving to a different historical period with each new series. There was more to Blackadder's accomplishment than just luck. By the middle of the 1980s, Rowan was well known in Britain and his work was making its way into other parts of the entertainment world. Rowan also looked into acting in movies during this time. In 1983, he was in the James Bond movie Never Say Never Again, which was one of his first big screen roles. He played Nigel Small-Fawcett, a timid and inexperienced Foreign Office official. This character let him try out his funny side in a more serious situation. Rowan easily handled TV, theater, and movies as the 1980s went on. He created history in 1981 by being the youngest person to perform a solo show on London's West End. This accomplishment spoke something important about him. He could keep an audience interested for a whole evening, even without a group of actors. His one-man act combined physical comedy with crisp skits, showing not only how creative he was, but also how dedicated he was to his art. The many different things he did during this time helped shape how people saw him in public. Some comedians are noted for a certain style, tone, or character. Rowan was not the same. He was just as good at doing funny verbal comedy, funny physical comedy without words and emotional situations. By the end of the decade, it was evident that Rowan Atkinson was becoming one of the most unique comic voices in Britain. He didn't know it yet, but the character that would make him famous all over the world was about to come to life. All the abilities he had learned over the years through sketch humor, stage performance, and television work were getting him ready for the role that would make him famous all over the world. People were about to meet Mr. Bean. When Rowan Atkinson first presented Mr. Bean to the world, it changed the world of comedy in a way that no one saw coming. It was the winter of 1990, and British TV was full with loud jokes, fast-paced conversations, and the familiar rhythm of stand-up punchlines. Then a calm, strange man in a tweed jacket came along. He blinked at the surroundings as if everything could be fixed with a sideways look and an overactive imagination. And nearly right away, people leaned in. There weren't any funny lines or smart exchanges in Mr. Bean. He didn't really talk at all, though. Rowan made him a character whose actions were mostly based on how he looked. A little bit of a kid, a little bit of a troublemaker, and a little bit of an outsider, looking at the world from a slightly off-kilter position. He got his jokes from daily events, going to the pool, getting ready for a vacation, taking a test. Things that most people go through without any problems turned into chaotic genius in Mr. Bean's hands. It was clear from a way that Rowan was drawing from a vast reservoir of ideas, especially the famous French filmmaker and comedian Jacques Tati, whose character Monsieur Hulot depended a lot on body language, quiet, and an almost musical sense of timing. Rowan didn't just copy those things, though. He shaped them into something that was clearly his own. People all throughout the world started to speak Mr. Bean's language, which was not words but movement. And that was what made him Mr. Bean. You didn't have to speak English to understand him. You just had to see how funny and awkward it is to be human. The show aired from 1990 to 1995, but its effects lasted far longer than that. As the programs moved from one continent to another, Mr. Bean became one of the few TV characters that people all around the world knew. He was a stranger, yet for some reason, you felt like you had known him your whole life. People watched him on old box TVs, hazy hotel screens, in waiting rooms, and in places where British humor had never really caught on before. And they really did laugh. That tsunami of interest around the world led to movies like Bean in 1997 and Mr. Bean's Holiday in 2007. which took the character on new adventures while keeping the same attitude. Even animated versions came out, letting Mr. Bean live in a realm where real-world reasoning didn't have to apply. Rowan kept the mystery going through all of this. He never went on and on about the character or Bean's past or reasons for doing things. The magic can get stronger the less you know. Rowan's life was changing just as swiftly behind the scenes. He married Sunetra Sastry, a makeup artist he met while working on Blackadder in the early 1990s. They had a calm and steady relationship, and they raised 2 kids together. Rowan always kept his family life out of the spotlight, even though fame may bring a lot of commotion. He kept the pandemonium of popularity far away from his peaceful home. Rowan found love again with actress Louise Ford years later, but the pair drifted apart and split in 2015. Their daughter, who was born in 2017, changed his life in a big way, one less public and more focused on family and warmth than before. Rowan's real-life garage was full of the machines he loved, unlike Mr. Bean, who famously drove about in a little lime green Mini, cars that are sleek, powerful, and well-made. He got his truck driver's license, raced cars as a hobby, and became very interested in the world of automotive engineering and performance. He talked about cars in interviews with the same passion and attention to detail that he gave to comedy. It wasn't just a pastime. He was conversant in another language. You could tell how complicated the man behind the character was when you looked at the 2 sides. One side is driven by fun, while the other is influenced by rationality and a quiet will to succeed. For anyone, turning 70 is a big deal, but for Rowan Atkinson, it feels like the world finally stops to think about everything he has done for comedy. It's amazing to think about where it all started when I look back. A bashful lad from County Durham with a gentle stutter who didn't appear like he would ever be famous around the world. He had the grades to be an engineer, the focus of a scientist, and the silence of someone who may have fit in. But every time he got on stage, something opened up. That same spark got him through university reviews, radio sketches, West End productions, and the famous run of Blackadder, all of which led up to the time he introduced the world to Mr. Bean. Rowan has left behind a special kind of legacy that is influenced not only by the characters he played but also by how consistent he was. People who want to be comedians study his work. Actors who are twice his age talk about his timing. This is when the last twist comes in, the one that fans have talked about for years. The thought that Mr. Bean might not be a real person. It began as a joke, a humorous suggestion hidden in the first few seconds of the broadcast. In other episodes, Mr. Bean falls from the sky in a beam of light, like a creature from another world might. He just lands, brushes himself off, and starts making trouble wherever he goes. No explanation, no history. This strange, unknown man is only trying to figure out how to live his life. Over time, followers came up with hypotheses, essays, and even short films about Bean being an alien or a visitor. The clues seem to fit. He has a hard time grasping basic social rules. He copies other people to fit in. He acts like he's seeing people for the first time, and his problem-solving, creative, chaotic, and completely unpredictable behavior feels quite alien. Rowan didn't say anything about these theories for years. He let people wonder and talk about it, which only made the concept stronger. But when he became 70, he finally let himself smile at the myth. He said in a funny manner that Mr. Bean was always meant to seem a little strange, not in the literal sense, but in the way he doesn't follow the rules of regular life. He is a stranger in a world he knows, a person who is visiting a world they don't entirely grasp, a person who views everything a little bit off-center. That's why he's so amusing, though. And maybe that's what folks thought all along. Not that Mr. Bean was really from another planet, but he was never meant to fit into the normal ways of seeing things. He was a mix of cartoon, mime, human, and something else entirely. Rowan Atkinson's legacy isn't simply about the roles he played. Rowan Atkinson strolled into the world, blinked at it, and decided to make it off. Now the world is brighter, lighter,